Have you ever looked around the room and thought, why wasn't my name put forward? You've led the projects, delivered the results, done everything right. So why are you being overlooked? Welcome to the Your Next Move podcast, the show for high-performing professionals who want to be seen for their brilliance, speak with influence, and accelerate their path to leadership. I'm your host, Kimberly Brown, international career and leadership expert, keynote speaker, and best-selling author of Next Move, Best Move. If you're ready to turn up the volume and finally get seen, heard, and respected inside and outside of your organization, you're in the right place. Let's head into today's episode. Hello, and welcome back to episode 106 of the Your Next Move podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Brown, and today we will be talking about fear. So, fun fact, I know that I'm a career and leadership coach to high-performing professionals, but really and truly, outside of tactical tips and strategies to achieve like new career milestones or goals, I'm really chatting about fear and confidence. So much so, I don't want to say it's not a shameless plug, but maybe a little preview. This is the topic I am most likely going to write about for my second book. I've already started writing about it, but not in a way I'm ready to talk about yet. But it really is centered around fear and confidence. I fundamentally believe that you always have the answer to your problems when you're a high performing professional who knows who they are and what they want. Even if you come to me and you've said something like, oh my gosh, Kimberly, I'm really feeling stuck. I'm not sure about my next move. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I want to be, what role. I don't believe you. There is always something brewing just below the surface in your mind that you're afraid of. And that's exactly where you need to lean in because fear is not the obstacle, it is the invitation. And 9 times out of 10, it's fear of failure, cancellation, or even success. I know for me in my life, a lot of times it's been fear of success that's masking as all of these other things. I know this is true because I deeply, deeply relate to this as well. And fear is one of the main reasons why I'm consistently in some type of coaching relationship for my business to make sure I have someone who's always challenging my mindset and helping hold me accountable for the goals that I set myself. When I'm talking about fear with my clients, I want to share a little bit about what fear costs us by sharing some statistics and numbers that I always put up on the screen. So, number one, 85% of people have avoided pursuing an opportunity due to fear. And this is from the American Psychological Association. 61% of employees admit they've held back ideas at work out of fear or criticism. That is from the Gallup Workplace Report. Fear of failure is the number one barrier to career advancement globally. Harvard Business Review. Professionals who avoid risks are 30% less likely to be promoted within a 2-year period. That is from the McKinsey Women in the Workplace study. And last but not least, companies with a high fear culture generate 50% fewer product ideas than those with a high psychological safety culture. And that's from Google's Project Aristotle. When I hear those stats, it just reinforces that fear is something we are always going to have, but we cannot let it stop us. You cannot let it stop you. I cannot let it stop me from reaching any goals that we have. So I want to break down how top leaders use fear as fuel because I don't believe in asking people to be fearless. Fear is absolutely a natural response to the unknown, to doing something new. But I do want you to be courageous and not allow fear to serve as a stop sign in your life. So I'm going to walk you through 5 things that you can do to help use fear as fuel. So if you want to bring your pen and paper out, now is the time. So number 1, recognize that feelings of fear and excitement are processed in the same exact way in the brain. So this means that your brain cannot tell if you're being chased by a lion, tiger, or a bear, or if you're just afraid to speak up at an upcoming leadership team meeting. It feels exactly the same in your body, literally the same exact feeling. So when you know this, as a leader, you can reframe your thoughts around being scared to being genuinely excited about what's to come. And I'm really big on saying things like this out loud. So if I feel that I am really ramping up the anxiety in my body, my breathing is changing, my heart is racing, I'm starting to sweat. So, fun fact, before I generally speak on stages, I've been known to wear another extra layer of Spanx, or I love to wear a blazer because when I get really nervous and I get really scared, I sweat. And I sweat on like my stomach. So, one of the most oddest places, because I never sweat there unless I'm nervous. It's a stress response for my body. And I will literally be backstage. If you've ever hired me to speak at your company or you've been able to see me backstage, you'll generally see me walk away. I'm all mic'd up, the mic isn't turned on, and I will be like whispering to myself, like, I am so excited to deliver this talk today. I am so excited to give this great information to the audience. The audience is excited and primed and ready to hear me speak because they are ready to learn and take action. I say these things out loud so that I'm combating what my brain is telling me, which is, "Oh my gosh, you're going to die. Oh my gosh, everyone is going to hate you. What if someone is sleeping in the front row?" The second those thoughts start to come in, I immediately counteract with, "I am so excited to be here today." They hired the right person to grace their stage and keynote. Everyone is going to be beaming with excitement and have pages full of notes when I walk off the stage today. And I'll say those things so that I can recognize that, fear and excitement are the same, but I'm going to process it as excitement. I am not going to process it as fear. And there's a quote here that I found from Nelson Mandela. It says, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." And that really just goes back into that mindset of you're not going to not feel fear. You are going to feel it. However, we can triumph over it. We can be courageous and still take action. So, next up, number 2 is use the 5-second rule to interrupt that fear driven hesitation. So, in 2017, Mel Robbins came out with a book called The 5-Second Rule. And she explains that when you're nervous or you're doubting yourself and you're hesitating, that you can literally count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and take action before your brain talks you out of it. So anytime you are nervous, it's essentially hit that go button and do something. When you count down in this way, it interrupts that fear loop by shifting the control from your limbic system. And your limbic system is that whole fight, flight, freeze to the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for your decision making. You are forcing that decision. You are going to do something. I always like to talk about anxiety from the perspective of the Inside Out movie, Inside Out 2, the Disney movie where they have all the feelings. If you have not seen Inside Out 1 or 2, I'm going to pause for a second. Y'all need to see it. But so I don't go down that rabbit hole. In Inside Out 2, they introduced the emotion of anxiety. And you can literally see on screen what anxiety looks and feels like in the body. And I love when I think about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because we all can use that almost in the other way, right? Too, where you can feel yourself going over the edge. You can feel yourself about to start crying. You can feel yourself about to bust out and yell at someone in your life. You can almost feel that sense of the bad thing is going to happen. But what if we reverse that and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm going to take action with one small decisive step, sending the email, making the call, walking into the room. It helps you create that momentum because when we think about success, it really is about how can you put one foot in front of the other? How can you maintain consistent momentum over time and break all of those weakened bonds we create from procrastination, from fear, lack of courage, where we halt and stop and go and stop and go and stop and go. And we wonder why we've just been doing this dance in the same spot and haven't moved forward. So, next up, number 3, I want you to start with the end in mind by having a project pre-mortem to run through all of the worst case scenarios in advance. So if you've heard of a postmortem, so essentially in the workplace, a lot of corporate environments may say after a big project, okay, we're going to have that postmortem meeting, meaning at the end, when everything is over, we're going to have the recap meeting to talk about what happened. I'm telling you to do a pre-mortem to run through all of the worst case scenarios in advance. I found an article from Harvard Business Review from years and years and probably over a decade ago, and they talked about this. And we need to stop waiting until the end so you can have an excuse when you can preemptively have solutions ready to go. So when you build out a project plan for a project, for an idea, an initiative, etc., you generally plan it with the best case scenario. If no problems were to come into play, what if you had that plan, right? You had your plan A, but you already had B, C, D, E, and F all ready to go because you went through those worst case scenarios. If we go back to my Inside Out 2 movie, when they talked about the emotion of anxiety, so anxiety, the character had this essentially this back room of minions that came up with all of these worst case scenarios of what could go wrong. Our brains are already doing that. Our issue is that we let that stop us. What if we create time for this in a pre-mortem and you can walk through all of the things anticipating what could happen to give yourself, again, confidence and courage to take action? Because now you will also have a plan for when things don't go right. This is the time to let the fear fly in your brain and come up with everything that could potentially prevent you from reaching your goal. It could feel counterintuitive, but I find, even for myself, that having the backup plan ready gives me more confidence to take action because I know I gave myself enough time to think about all of the worst case scenarios and what I would do so I can go ahead and do those things. And if you're someone with team, it gives your team more confidence because they already have a plan and they can act autonomously, maybe even kick it off without you if needed because you've already approved this is what's going to happen. If B happens, this is what we're going to do. If C happens, this is what we're going to do. It gives everyone the confidence to move just a little bit differently, a little bit more swiftly. So, four, and I touched on this just a little bit earlier, but I want you to determine the smallest step you can take in the desired direction. So, when you know what your goal is, what is the smallest step you can take? So, let's use an example of public speaking. When clients come to me and they want help public speaking, I don't want us to think about doing the TED Talk, right? Like, that's scary. That's the big one. I don't want you to think about doing the 60-minute keynote. I don't want you to think about that. I want you to think about how can we present at a team meeting, then maybe an organization or department-wide meeting, maybe an ERG event. And then what if you did a mini session at an industry conference, and then a workshop, and then a keynote? Some things in life we can do and go from 0 to 100. Like, I know some folks who they have no interest in running a 5K and saying, "Oh, I'm training for a 5K." They want to say, "I am training for a marathon." When they're not a runner, it's like, "Nope, nope, nope. I have been on the couch for a whole year. I'm going to train for a marathon. Doesn't matter that I haven't ran." But if we think about that marathon concept, they end up running a million 5Ks in their training. But that level of motivation works for them, even though they're still slowly increasing their distance over the span of months, sometimes even a year, before they even attempt to do that full 26.2 miles or whatever it is. But you cannot go from zero miles to 26.2 miles in 24 hours without risking your health. I know for me, as a non-runner over here, my legs would fall off and abandon me probably shortly after mile 1 because I am not a runner. So when we're thinking about our goals, I always challenge folks. Yes, there's a methodology of you will rise to the occasion. Or some people, there's a quote about like you rise to the level of like your preparation or you fall to the level of your preparation. I forget which one it is, whatever one that is. But I'm not saying to do that. I'm saying let's take a baby step. Let's not try and do the big, scary, hairy, audacious goal right from the get-go. It is okay to think about what is the one small thing you can do to build your confidence right now in a safe environment. And that leads me perfectly into our last one, number 5, which is building a culture of psychological safety for you and your team. We are all going to fail at some point in time. And I know if you're listening to this podcast, if we were on the same age, give or take 10 years, you've failed in some aspect of your life. Maybe it's public, maybe it's private, but it's inevitable that we may not reach our goals on that first attempt. And it is crucial that you cultivate a growth mindset toward the fear of failure, that each miss is getting you closer to your goals. And we know that we learn more from failure most of the time than we do from success. When we win, we're like, oh, yeah, let's celebrate. Let's go to the spa. Let's buy the bag. Let's do the thing. However, we're going to celebrate. We don't sometimes even do the post-mortem if we won. But when we fail, we sit and we do an analysis of our actions, an analysis of what went well, what didn't go well, how are we going to tweak and edit and fine tune. It is so important to take that time and not beat up on yourself for not reaching your goal, but start asking yourself questions like, what did I learn? What worked out amazing? What was terrible? And even if you're successful, what's the one thing that you'd like to adapt if you had to do the same thing all over again? You need to create an environment that is safe for you and your team to fail, learn, and grow in public and for you in private. So let's recap to make sure you have them all. So number 1 was recognize that the feelings of fear and excitement are processed exactly the same in the brain. So we have to reframe that thought. You are not scared, you are excited about this opportunity. Number 2, think about using the 5-second rule to interrupt that fear-driven hesitation. So literally counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then go. Do something. And the 5-second rule, there's a book by Mel Robbins if you want to go deeper into that theory. Number 3, start with the end in mind by having a project pre-mortem to run through all of the worst case scenarios in advance. Allow yourself that moment of really getting into, oh my gosh, like this is going to be big. This is scary. These are all the things that could go wrong, but building your preemptive plan to address all those things if they happen. And if they do, know that you will be ready. Number 4, determine the smallest step that you can take in the desired direction. The smallest step, not the big thing. And it's not that we're not going for big goals because we most definitely can. But what is the step that we can take right now that allows us to still feel safe and kind of test the waters and test our own boundaries and build up some courage and confidence? And last but not least, you need to build a culture of psychological safety for you and your team. You need to create an environment where it is okay to make a mistake. It is okay to fail. And I did a podcast years ago with Tara. We talked about workplace PTSD. I know many of us have had experiences where we could have been yelled at, or we had some lackluster or terribly toxic experience when we failed, or even seeing it secondhand. You saw someone else fail and get yelled at, and you're like, oh no, that ain't gonna be me. All of those things contribute to our ability to take risks and our ability to combat fear. So we need to create an environment where it's okay, where we know that we have the skills, we have the experience to clean it up, start over, and do it better the next time. And in our mind also, that's why I say the psychological safety for you and your team, because you also need to have that mental fortitude to not beat yourself up. I was listening to a clip on Instagram the other day. I think it was even in relation to dating. And they were talking about how we spend so much time thinking about what we don't want that we end up manifesting the bad thing. So if we don't want someone to waste our time, oh, it was Shan Boodram, and I think it was an interview with Les Alfred on the She's So Lucky podcast. And it was a clip, and she's like, we end up getting someone who wastes our time because that's all we're saying. We go into the date with that energy. We go in with that experience. And we create more of that because we're not focusing on the good. We're not focusing on what we want. We're creating a mindset that's kind of toxic. So you need to be able to build that internally for yourself and really work on reframing those thoughts and belief in yourself and your ability to combat fear and show up effectively. If this message resonates with you and one of your fears is building your personal and professional brand through speaking, I invite you to get on the waitlist for the Visibility Shift. This is a 12-week experience where I'll be working with you to refine your speaker voice, elevate your professional brand, and finally be seen as a leader in your industry without begging for a seat at the table, burning out, or leaving your 9 to 5. This experience will be kicking off in January 2026. So you can go to KimberlyBOnline.com/TVS-waitlist. I hope to see your name on the list when we start to announce more information soon. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Your Next Move podcast. If this episode has helped you get clearer on how to get seen as a leader, speak with influence, and step into rooms where you belong, please share it with a colleague or friend who needs to hear it too. And if you're ready to develop a speaker brand that opens doors and attracts the right opportunities, head to KimberlyBOnline.com/TVS-waitlist to explore how we can work together. Until next time.